Hi guys, it's Stephanie with So Make It. Thanks for tuning back in. In a previous video, I cut the body and the lining of the NCW made with directional fabric. I showed you how to make the pattern to alter the body for the directional fabric. I then cut two pieces for the body, flip them around and sewed them together so that the direction is correct, like on the Betty Boop wallet. And now I'm ready to prepare the lining and the exterior of the body. I'm going to use a Pellon 809. It's a decor weight interfacing. It is fusible, and the shiny side is the side that has the glue. This is going to go on the back of your fabric. I've pressed the interfacing on, and now I'm just going to trim around the edges and get it ready to get sewn together. Now I'm going to prepare the lining. To make it easier to turn the wallet out, I'm just going to fold my lining in half, and right across the halfway point I'm going to cut a hole about 4.5 to 5 inches wide. This hole is going to be used to turn the wallet right side out. I won't have to leave an opening in the stitching along the edge of the wallet to turn it, so it's going to make it a lot easier to turn or to close up. The hole will be closed up underneath the credit card slots and within the box that I'll sew the double zipper pocket in with. Now the lining is ready to go. I'll go ahead and grab the hardware that we need. We need the turn lock closure, the washer. We also need 2 lobster claw clasps. And 2 D-rings. Now I'm just marking where the turn lock is going to be placed. I am going to put a few scrap pieces of Pellon 809 down on that area, and then I'll remark and prepare to cut the hole to attach the turn lock. I am putting the extra Pellon there, or the extra interfacing there, to reinforce the fabric. The turn lock is going to get a lot of wear and tear when the wallet's used, so I just want to make sure that it's secure, make sure that it's not going to tear the fabric when it's being used. And now I'm just placing the pattern piece back on the back side of my fabric, and I'm going to mark again. Now that I have the extra Pellon pressed on, I'm going to mark again where I want the turn lock to be. I usually just make an X from corner to corner, and then I take the washer and I place the center point of the washer on the middle of the X, and then I'll make my lines where I want to make the holes for the prongs for the turn lock. And now I'm just going to take the seam ripper and cut a little slit so that I can put the prongs of the turn lock in. And I'm going to do that to both of the marks that I've made. I'm just doing this very carefully, making sure that I don't make the holes too big. I don't want them to be loose. I don't want them to be able to rip and tear as the wallet's being used. And now I'm just inserting the prongs into the hole. Sometimes you just have to work with it a little bit. And now I'm just going to put the washer on and bend the prongs down. Now that the turn lock is installed, we'll get started on constructing the wallet. Now I'm making the D-ring tabs. I'm just taking a piece of fabric. It's just a scrap that I had left over from cutting the wallet. I've taken a strip about 2 inches wide. I folded it in half and finger pressed it. And then I'm going to fold the outside edges in and then fold it back in half and stitch along both sides. I am using just about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I'll just feed it through. This strip is really more than enough. I'll end up trimming quite a bit of this off, but it's just easier, I think, to work with a little bit of a larger piece of fabric than to have to worry about lining everything up straight on an area that we're going to trim off anyway. So that's just how I do it. I've cut that strip in half. In some bags, I'll just sew the end of the tab together just to keep it from sliding from side to side. For the NCW, I found that it's better to sew it close to the D-ring. Just tack it into place so that the D-ring doesn't slide around. And now I'm going to take the D-ring tabs and baste them onto the flap. I'm going to go about 1/2 inch from each edge and baste one D-ring to each edge. I am basting the D-rings onto the lining side. That way they'll be on the inside of the wallet. Here's where all the hard work comes together. We have the flap prepared, we have the D-rings on. Skip that step if you don't want to put a adjustable strap or make it a crossbody. The flap up with the pretty side of fabric against the pretty side of the exterior. So here you want your flap lining facing up. The D-ring tabs are going to be facing up. Those are going to be on the inside of the wallet when I sew it together. I'm going to line that up along the center and pop a couple of clips in. And then I'm going to take the lining fabric and I'm going to lay it face down or pretty sides together so that you're seeing the interfacing. And then I'm just going to place clips all the way around. Once I get it lined up the way that I want it, it'll be time to stitch. When I'm lining it up across the bottom, that turn lock will kind of pull and make the fabric look like it's not lined up. That turn lock is not going to be a problem once we get it flipped inside out. So you'll just kind of work with the fabric, pull it, and make sure that the edges of both the lining and the exterior meet up. And now that I have the lining and the exterior lined up, I'm just going to take the fabric to the machine. I'm going to sew all the way around using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Just going slowly around the curves, going slowly over that thick area where the flap and the D-ring tabs are, just kind of filling along the way to make sure that the D-ring hasn't flipped up. It isn't going to get in the way of the needle. I am using the 1/4 of an inch foot here just to guide me to make sure that I have a consistent 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And I'll just kind of work slowly over that tab. I may have to lift the presser foot just a little bit to make sure that that D-ring tab, or both D-ring tabs, get past that 1/4 of an inch foot. I'll just remove the clips as I go and sew all the way around. Now that I've sewn all the way around, I'm just going to use pinking shears to clip the curves to make sure that they'll lay flat when we get the project turned out. Also going to trim off the extra D-ring tab. Now I'm just going to turn the project right side out. I'm just going to pull in and pull the flap out the hole that we left in the lining. Get all the seams pushed out and make sure that it lays nice and flat. Once I have it looking like I want it, I'll take it and just press out the edge, and then we'll be ready to top stitch. Now I'm just going to pop the 1/4 inch foot back on, and I'm going to top stitch all the way around the exterior. I like to start on the curve so when I backstitch, the double stitching isn't right on the front or the focal point of the wallet. When I get to the area of the flap, I'm just going to make sure that the D-rings haven't moved into the path of the needle, and I'll just sew all the way around. I'm just lining the credit card slots up. I'm using the top stitching of the flap and just laying them just below the top stitching of the body. And that's going to put it in the center, and then I'll put a few pins in to keep it from shifting. The top stitching of the top credit card is parallel to the top stitching of the body of the wallet, and the same for the other side. Now I'm going to fold the curved edge in using the side of the flap as a guide, and that's where I want to fold it. I'm going to put a couple of clips in to hold it into place. I'm going to fold the other edge in as well. And now that I'm happy with the way it's lined up, I'm going to go ahead and sew along the edge using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to sew down each side. This step is why I left the interfacing out of the edge of the credit card slots, because there are so many layers there. It just helps it feed through the machine better if it's not as thick. So the interfacing is in the center of the credit card slots, but I left about a 1/2 inch on each side, and it's all going to be caught in the seam and isn't going to affect the stability of the credit card slots at all. I have the edge of my presser foot lined up with the edge of the fabric, and I backstitched at the beginning. I'm going to also backstitch at the end. I'm going to sew both sides like this. Depending on the size of the sewing machine, the turn lock sometimes wants to kind of catch on the machine and tends to want to pull the wallet or the fabric a different way. If this is happening, just lift the turn lock up over that edge and it should feed through very well. And now I'm just testing the fit of the credit card slots. There are 6 credit card slots on each side of the wallet. Now I'm ready to put the zipper pockets in. I'm going to measure about a 1/2 inch on both sides of the center seam of the credit card slots. This is going to be the guide for sewing the zipper pockets in. This also will be how we close up that raw edge in the lining and in the zipper pockets. Now I'm going to place the zipper pockets with the raw edge down toward the credit card slots, and I'm going to line it up with the top stitching or the top credit card slot pocket, and I'm just going to clip each side to the credit card slot pocket. Now that I have it clipped into place, I'm just going to take the ruler and use the marks that I made on the flaps to kind of trace out my guideline for sewing. I'm going to use this as a guide to sew the box that will catch the raw edges for the lining and the zipper pocket. Now I'm just lining my needle up with the line that I've traced out, and I'm going to just sew a box. This secures the zipper pocket into place and closes up all of those raw edges. I'm going to put my needle down, raise the presser foot and turn. Sew a few stitches. It'll be about an inch. And then put my needle down, turn again, and sew along the line that I traced. I'll repeat that for all 4 sides. If that pesky turn lock gets in your way, just kind of lift it over the bed of the machine. I'm just removing the clips and just folding the wallet up. Everything looks good. Now we're ready to do the last step of sewing on this wallet, which is just going to be to secure the sides to the zipper pockets. I just stand the zipper pocket up, and then I take the edge flap and pinch it and then clip it to the zipper pocket. I'll do this for both edges. Once I have the edges clipped, I'll just fold the wallet up, make sure that everything looks good on the sides. That one's puckered a little bit, so I'll adjust that. So that looks much better now that I've got that pucker out. And I'll go ahead and get ready to sew the edges together. here I'm just going to grab the flap that I want to sew right now. I'm just going to pull it out and fold everything else out of the way, and I'm just sewing one pocket at a time. And I'm just going to make about a 1/2 inch stitch, and I'm going to back stitch a few times just to secure it. You can see here the stitches that I've made and that it has secured the flap to the pocket. You can definitely use rivets here if you'd like. And I'm just going to repeat that for all 4 edges of each pocket. And now we're ready to put the turn lock receiver on the wallet. And here I'm just going to mark the hole for the turn lock. I'm just placing the turn lock on the wallet and making a mark around the edge. I'm also going to mark the holes for the screws. And now I'm just going to use the awl to poke all the way through all layers so that I'll have the hole where I can put the screws in. I'll do that for both screw holes. And then I'll use a blade to just cut out the fabric in the middle of the square that I've drawn. That's going to be where the turn lock can insert. and we can close the wallet up. So I've got the hole trimmed out, and I'm just going to put the turn lock on. I'm making sure that the screws are on the interior and that the pretty side of the turn lock is on the outside. You just have to work with it and get it lined up. Once it's lined up, your screws will go in there nicely and it'll be all done. And there it is, all closed up. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Have a great day.